In my talk, there will not be many people around, but the majority of problems is induced by people, either the way they ride, either the way they are keeping horses. And I will concentrate today on the 23 hours we are not riding them, because they are very important for the hour we are riding them. And then they use words like, if you want to be involved with your horse and you want your horse to get done something, you have to show leadership, or the horse has to respect you, or he has to be submissive to you. The basic schedule for horses is to eat for 2 to 3 hours and then rest for 1 hour. They do not have a predominance of sleeping at night. It's almost never that they're not eating for 6 hours, and there's a little physiological reasons for that. If you're looking at social interaction, then we usually look at the physical social interaction, like these two Frisian horses are doing up there. And that's only about 2% of their time over the 24-hour time budget. But there's more to it. If horses are doing this, and if they're especially doing this on this place where we see this little green arrow, which is called the plexus stellatus, which is underneath there, I'll come to that a little bit later. We know if you do it that way, if you do it there, if horses do it to each other, or we as humans do it over there, we can lower the heart rate. And we can lower the cortisol, and cortisol is a kind of stress hormone. On the other side, we have the agonistic behavior. So all behaviors which are involved with access to a limited resource, basically. It's almost 90% of the interactions between horses are very, very mild. But dominance is a one-to-one experience. And for us, when we put them all together, then you see that then we can make a rancor. And why do I tell that? Because that has some implications for leadership. Leadership and dominance are two different things. I mean, there is some connection between them. They are not the highest strength animals. And what we have seen is that leadership, in the literal sense of the word, is literally leading a group from A to B. It's also leading in their day-to-day maintenance activities. They're leaders because the rest is following them. It's not because they're pulling. If you want to interact with an animal, you have to gain by predictability of your own behavior in order to be a leader of your horse, if you want to say it in that words. Behavior is the most and the only parameter in which we look at animals, how their state, emotional state is at that moment. If you're a trainer, a teacher, a rider, or a veterinarian, doesn't matter. So there is a relationship with everything around it, with motivation, with the environment, etc. But what you do see is that they go to look for an alternative to solve it. And that was what we very often call abnormal behaviors. But if you really look at it, it's not an abnormal behavior, it's a normal behavior in an abnormal environment. So if we look at it, we do see, if we look at horses, which are these essential behaviors for horses, it's having the access to semi-permanent access to forage, social contact, and free locomotion. These three have been determined in a lot of research all put together as being the basic need for animals for horses to do so. A fourth, and it's also separated a little bit, is about interaction, and that has to do with predictability and constant handling, i.e. with learning theory. So what happens if it's not met? Then we'll see that horses can get into stress. You see in all the animals that if one of the two, and especially if both are applicable, so cannot predict and not influence, that chronic stress is really high. And that will have a lot of influence on the behavior of animals. But just being present helps. So we do see that if you're riding, if you're training, if you have a person who is stressed or a horse who is stressed or both, my advice is always use a second horse. So the take-home message is horses are obligatory social. They really need to be social. And use that by providing at least visual contact 24 hours a day. Some advice about the feeding thing. Basically, you have to make sure that they're never longer than 6 hours without roughage.